In Activity 1, you did some quick research on a topic. You gathered 20 to 25 facts and you grouped those facts into paragraphs. Your assignment today is to write 2 to 3 of the paragraphs that you outlined. Your goal is to show us your best elaboration. If you remember, I am researching monkeys and bananas. I wanted to understand why the bananas that we eat are unhealthy for monkeys. After grouping my facts, I ended up with 3 different paragraphs. The difference between bananas and bananas in the wild, why bananas are unhealthy for monkeys, and what is healthy for monkeys to eat. I actually only ended up writing 2 of the 3 paragraphs, and the reason that I did that was because if you look at my list of facts, those were the paragraphs that I had the most information about. I really felt like I could do my best elaboration in those 2 paragraphs. So today, you can choose to write all 3 of the paragraphs that you outlined. Or if you feel like you can really do your best elaboration in 2 paragraphs, that's fine also. Your goal today is to show us as many of those strategies for elaboration as you can. So I want to show you some of the strategies that I used in my 2 paragraphs. The first, and probably the most important, is that I used transition words and phrases. I worked really hard to have each sentence build on the previous sentence, and I did that through using lots of transition words and phrases. Transition words and phrases are words and phrases like however, in contrast, in fact, therefore. They allow us to build on the previous sentence. In your writing, we should see at least 5 to 7 different transition words and phrases. You'll find a list of those words and phrases in Schoology. Some of the other strategies that I used were I used tons and tons of facts. You have so many facts on the topic that you researched, so you will use lots of facts to elaborate. I also used a study. You may find some really great statistics as well. So you can use statistics or studies. So here's the study that I found. The European Association of Zoos and Aquaria found that while primates do eat bananas and other fruits in the wild, the fruits they find in the wild are more like vegetables in their nutritional composition. I used definitions. I define here nutritional composition. I said nutritional composition is what the food contains that is important for nutrition, like sugars, protein, and fiber. I'm using a transition phrase, nutritional composition is, to define that term. Down below, I also defined gastric dilation. So gastric dilation is this problem that bananas cause to monkeys. It makes their stomachs like blow up and actually can cause them to die. It's crazy. So I defined that term as well. We should see probably a quote from an expert in your writing. Here is my quote from my expert, Dr. Amy Plowman. According to Dr. Amy Plowman, head of conservation and advocacy at Paignton Zoo in Devon, England, giving a monkey a banana is like feeding them cake or chocolate. Here's what I want you to notice about my expert quote. Amy Plowman is actually an expert. She is a doctor. She's the head of conservation and advocacy at a zoo in England. When you choose your expert quote, please make sure that they are actually an expert. Do not use a piece of evidence from an article. Your quote needs to be from a doctor, a scientist, a researcher, someone who is an expert in the field that you're researching. It should not be just a random piece of evidence from an article. So please make sure that when you use that expert quote, that you actually introduce the expert and why they are an expert. So I said she's the head of conservation and advocacy at Paignton Zoo. And then lastly, I'm using examples or anecdotes. So I use a great example here of a zoo, Pangton Zoo, that has chosen not to feed monkeys bananas any longer, and is feeding them healthier things for them, like green leafy vegetables or leafy branches and twigs. So I'm using an example. You can use either an example or an anecdote in your writing. We would love to see at least one. An anecdote, if you remember, is a short story, and I really struggled to find a place that I could use an anecdote in my writing. So it's fine if there is a strategy, like I also didn't use a statistic. If there's a strategy that you feel like you can't use in your writing, that's fine. But we really should see a variety of strategies for elaboration. Okay, let me just quickly remind you. We want to see at least 5 to 7 transition words and phrases. And then we want to see tons of different strategies like facts, statistics and studies, definitions, quotes from experts, and examples or anecdotes in whatever you turn in today. Okay, go get started. Really show us your best elaboration.